My bad. I'm sorry. I was on the phone with my friend, and he kept me on the call. But it's a friend I haven't talked to in forever. So like, I'm not gonna just be like, oh, dude, I gotta go. Um, but yeah, thanks for being patient. I'm sorry that I kept you waiting. We'll get right into the videos today. Um, Let me just send a notification. But yeah, today we're going to talk about Nietzsche because I started reading Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and it's already one of my favorite books. So, um, dude, this book is awesome. This is like genuinely, I'm like 120 pages in, and I can already tell this is one of the best books I've ever read. This is a book that I think I'm gonna have to read a bunch of times to make sense of it to really capture everything Nietzsche is saying. And like I don't know how he outdoes this book. Like apparently The Will to Power is his best book. I don't know how you outdo this. Maybe it's just gonna be my favorite because it's written in the style of the prophet. Maybe it's gonna be my favorite for that reason. What's up, Eddie? How's everything? You feeling better today, Eddie? Did your COVID go away?
Foundations of your beliefs
That
crumble,
sounds off.
leaving you staring into the abyss? How do you find meaning in a world that offers none? Friedrich Nietzsche grappled with these profound questions, positioning him at the heart of one of the most critical shifts in Western history.
Feel
Nietzsche
better?
didn't
That's good.
just witness the collapse of traditional religious faith, he predicted both its cause and consequence. He foresaw the vacuum.
Basically, what Nietzsche did was he saw the crumbling of traditions, and I'm sorry, Fluffy Kitty. I don't. I'm sorry. I was on the phone with my friend. What do you want me to do? Just hang up on him, be rude? But basically, what Nietzsche did was he saw the crumbling of all these traditions, and he tried to find something to replace it with. It didn't work for him personally, but there's still a lot of wisdom in his words. It's kind of the thing of like separate the artist from the art. I think that's what you should do with Nietzsche's ideas. I think you should use them to inspire you. Don't use them to become like him because, I mean, whether you attribute it to his poor health or um, his just sensibilities that he couldn't quite get over, like he was, I mean, he really was an artist. Like you think of the artists that are like nitpicky that need things to go their way. I think he was that sort of way. Like maybe it was just that aspect of himself that made him so grumpy, but
Left behind by the crumbling of Western religious foundations
maybe it's just
and
his poor
sought
health.
revolutionary ideas to fill that void. Standing at the crossroads of faith and nihilism, Nietzsche attempted to carve out a new path, a third way, that neither relied on religion nor succumbed to the despair of meaninglessness. Born in 1844 in Saxony, Prussia, modern-day Germany, Nietzsche came from modest beginnings and lived a relatively ordinary and
He like was like a child prodigy. Like he became a professor basically as soon as he possibly could have. And like he would go on to be a professor for a while until his health got so bad that he couldn't be.
sheltered childhood. His father, Karl Ludwig Nietzsche, was the local Lutheran pastor, immersing young Friedrich deeply in the Christian faith from an early
There's a lot of similarities between Jung and Nietzsche. They both grow up in families where the father's a pastor. They both have their faith questioned, but Jung found the answers in faith. Nietzsche didn't find the answers in faith. That's why, like, I think Nietzsche has such a place in Jung's heart simply because he sees a lot of himself in there. And he sees someone that was very close to finding the answers that he was looking for, but never quite did. It's almost a tragic story about
age.
it.
Yet it wasn't long before this faith was shaken to its core. To when Nietzsche was just 5 years old, his father, the man who had preached the word of God, was diagnosed with a terminal brain disease. After a year of agonizing suffering, Nietzsche's father died at the age of 35. tragedy didn't stop there. Just a year later, his younger brother Ludwig also passed away. These early encounters with inexplicable suffering and death likely planted the seeds of Nietzsche's future philosophical inquiries.
He is, I don't even really consider Nietzsche a philosopher. Um, or if you do, I don't know if philosopher is the right word because it's very similar to Emerson where he tries to break down philosophy. He tries to say that any sort of set system limits you in some way. And to create your own system, to create your own self, to create your own identity, that's the only way to live a fulfilling life. That's basically his message. And that's what he strives to do. A lot of his greatest work comes in his criticism of other philosophy systems. It's so interesting to read how he just breaks down these philosophical things that have been relied on for generations, and he just does it like that. It's you almost have to appreciate it, but at the same time, you have to be like, all right, man, you gotta like you can't just break down everything and replace it with nothing. That's the idea of it. It's like you have to if you're gonna break down everything, you need to replace it with something that's worth replacing it with. And for Nietzsche, he didn't find that for himself personally. There are nihilists, existentialists, absurdists that lived happy lives, but it's very few and far in between. Like Camus might be the only one, but he died tragically, so who's to say? Um, but yeah,
Nietzsche's early
I think
life,
if Nietzsche was
marked by
exposed
loneliness and
to
sorrow,
um, Eastern spiritual practice, I think he would have. I think it would have transformed him in a way that is unimaginable.
set the tone for his intellectual journey. He eventually studied theology at the University of Bonn, showing great promise in his studies, particularly in Christian theology. However, it didn't take long for Nietzsche's intellectual rigor to clash with his religious upbringing. After just one semester at university, Nietzsche's exposure to various critiques of Christianity led him to question everything he had been taught. He let go of his faith, shedding the innocence of blind devotion. This
I'm gonna have the best mustache ever, too, by the way. I don't know if like you we needed to observe that, but God, just look at that mustache. Can you guys even see it? It's my head blocking it. Just look at that mustache, man. Come on. Sorry, shut up. We won't get so
crisis of belief
distracted.
marked a turning point in Nietzsche's life, leading him to study philology and the history of language at the University of Leipzig. Here, his brilliance became undeniable. By
A lot of his early work wasn't philosophy, it was on ancient it was on Greek and Roman works, a lot of it.
his mid-20s, Nietzsche
His first book's called The Birth of Tragedy. I haven't read it, but it's basically about that
was
idea.
appointed professor of classical philology at the University of Basel. He was the youngest professor to hold that position, a record that still stands today. However, academic life did not satisfy Nietzsche for long. He grew increasingly disillusioned with the constraints of academia and compounded by his deteriorating health.
It's very weird how analogous his life is to Emerson's. We were seeing this in the video the other day. Oops. We were seeing this in the video the other day of how like they kind of believed a lot of the similar things, but they took it in two different directions. Emerson's was purely spiritual, where Nietzsche's was very similar. It was all about the individual, but there was not really a spiritual aspect to it. And I think if Nietzsche had that faith aspect to it, that spiritual element, that there was something beyond human comprehension, I think his life would have been a lot different. But maybe it is because of his circumstances of his life that he couldn't gain that sense of faith back.
Left his teaching position after only a few years. Nietzsche's health issues, believed to be a combination of genetic ailments and syphilis, which he likely contracted from a brothel, forced him into a life of isolation. His He spent much of his time traveling across Europe seeking climates to alleviate his symptoms. For much of his later life, Nietzsche resided in the Swiss Alps, where he experienced alternating periods of productivity and debilitating illness. During
For like the last like 10 years of his life, he was so sick that he really couldn't work. I think he died when he was like 50 or 60, late 50s, early 60s maybe. But like it's the ultimate what could have been because that's really the start of your intellectual pursuit. I think is it Goth or Goeth? He finished Faust on his deathbed, I think. Like one of his, I think the work that he's remembered for the most, I'm pretty sure he finished like at like 80 or 90 years old, something that's insane like that.
these years of isolation, Nietzsche produced his most influential works. Despite suffering from physical ailments, failed relationships, and increasingly strained family ties, he found solace in his philosophical musings. Works like Human, All Too Human, The Gay Science, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond.
This is the one I'm reading right now. This is the one after Thus Spoke Zarathustra. I think this might be one of his later ones. Because when I read this, I'm like, this is a bitter man. Like you can feel the subtext of it. It's not breaking things down to replace it with something. That's what this book is. This book is breaking down the limits on human potential and doing it in such a profound way that you have no choice but to become all that you can be. Whereas this is just breaking things down.
Good and evil, and on the genealogy of morals became testaments to his relentless pursuit of understanding. In these texts, Nietzsche laid the groundwork for radically rethinking human values. He dismantled traditional notions of good and evil, right and wrong, asserting that these concepts were not objective truths, but social constructs meant to control and pacify. One of Nietzsche's
This is the idea that everyone's the hero in their own story. I mean, you hear it all the time, like Victor's history. We live in Victor's history. Like we get the side of things that you know, we get the side of the winners because we don't talk about the the Manhattan Project in anything but a positive light. We don't talk about the Japanese internment camps. We don't talk about the carpet bombs of Germany. We don't talk about burning the cities to the ground. You know what I mean? It's like we don't hear about the bad things that happen in World War II. We hear about the bad things of the other side. And it's this idea, like it's like there's not really such thing as a good guy and a bad guy in the world. Like if you think the US is the good guy, then there's a lot of people in the world that would disagree with you. Not saying that there's not good to come out of this country, not saying there's not good ideals, but like in someone's eyes somewhere, whether it's through propaganda, whether it's through something actually happened, like we are the bad guys. It's an interesting thought, and this is just like nobody really breaks down aspects of their lives in this. They're like they see the American flag and they think it stands for everything pure. Maybe the idealized America is a pure idea, but the actual American country doesn't really obey that. They don't really live up to that. It's unfortunate, and I guess I get we can always say like we should always aspire to greatness, but um, just recognizing this fact and being aware of it is an interesting idea, interesting thought experiment.
most famous and controversial declarations, God is dead, encapsulates his existential concerns.
He said God is dead and man killed him, and this means it's not quite as simple as like him professing atheism. It's more of a much deeper statement than you think. It's about God is dead, man killed him. This is the idea that like the institutions killed God. Like the idea that you don't have a personal connection with God, you have to go through some guy in a bunch of robes that tells you what God is thinking, that tells you that he is God's messenger on earth. Like it seems like more of a power system than it does like a system of enlightenment. And this is really the idea. I don't think he necessarily had anything against people that believed in something. It's believing in things that doesn't give the individual ultimate power is what he would disagree with. And that's what he was basically protesting. He was protesting the systems of power associated with religions, the the bureaucracy of these religions, how they make money hand over fist, don't pay any taxes, and year after year they're making more and more and more and more and more money, and year after year there's people that are sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker and poorer and poorer and poorer, and it's like, why do we subscribe to systems like this that don't really do anything for us? That's the point about it. And now, if you disagree with what I just said, I mean, there's pretty solid arguments for it, but this is just Nietzsche's point. I think, you know, people try to do their best. People in the church try to do their best. It's like you can't really serve that many people on a on a big enough scale. There was a time when I did everything believing God was watching me. How did that work out? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think people's idea of God is like a retribution, like revenge sense. Most people view God in a negative way, but like I like to view God as purity. I like to view God as love, as something that's positive. And in the moments when you're doing the most good, that's when you're in touch with God. In the moments when you're not doing what you know is wrong, like when you're doing something that is bad, that's God doesn't want you. God's just waiting to be present with you again. It's that idea. I mean, if you look into the Bible, the only conception of hell is that the absence of God completely, and I think that's a much better way of approaching things. Because when you fixate on certain ideas, when you fixate that you're being watched, that you're being judged, then you're going to act out of um, repression. You're going to act out of restriction. You're not going to be doing things because you want to do them. You're not going to be being nice because you want to be nice. You're going to give to charity because you think in some way it makes you a good person. You don't do it to be a good person. You know what I mean? Like, if you do something because you genuinely want to help someone, that means so much more than you doing something for people to view you as a good person, whether it's others, whether it's God. It's the stupidest. Like, I don't get why like we see philanthropists that give a lot of money, and it's like, how many of those people are actually doing it because they care about the issues, and how many of these people are doing it, one, for tax write-offs, and two, to feel good about themselves, and to have other people congratulate them for doing good things. Like, it's I don't buy these billionaires being altruistic. Like, if you were really altruistic, you wouldn't be a billionaire. Like, you don't get driven to be that wealthy, that rich, and be a good person. I mean, we could look at the death of Alexander the Great. Ambition's always the downfall of man. And you were always willing to compromise stuff for that force inside you that wants more. And that's why I think things I just said. But maybe you could find one example. Maybe there's someone somewhere that um is a really good person, but I'll believe it when I see it.
This was not a triumphant cry celebrating the death of faith, but a stark warning. With the collapse of Christianity, Nietzsche foresaw a catastrophic moral vacuum.
Look at our world today. There's a moral vacuum, and this is what, like, we used to have family, we used to have community, we used to have society, but now we have consumerism. What do we do when we get home? We don't even like say how was your day to your family. We don't even sit down at the dinner table. Instead, we just all go on our own devices, all turn on the TV, don't pay attention to it, and just buy whatever product comes up on the ad. Like, it's in the absence of morality, in the absence of a moral compass, we don't replace it with anything. We replace it with what is pushed forward. And there's no morality when it comes to modern music, when it comes to these things. I'm not saying like adopt a set belief system. I'm saying like it takes you looking on the inside to develop your own moral compass. Like, what are the things that make you the happiest? What are the things that bring you the most joy? Like, do you like spending time with this person? No? Well, then don't spend time with them. But if you like spending time with your family, spend all the time, because that's whatever matters to you most is what you should do most. Whatever gives you the feeling of, I don't like to use this word, but like purity, like pure bliss, pure joy. You don't think twice about wasting your time doing that, then do that. It's really that simple. But it's just like people are breaking down their moral compass and not replacing it with anything except what's being pushed to them, what's being sold to them. That's where this distinction comes. When you build your own set of beliefs, that's the most powerful thing you can do because those are your beliefs. But when you break down beliefs and don't put anything in its place, this is where it becomes dangerous. This is where it creates people that are nihilistic, that don't believe there's a way out, that don't believe that there's a brighter future, a yin and yang to life, that there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs.
He feared that, without a replacement for the ethical structure provided by religion, humanity would descend into nihilism, an existential crisis in which life, stripped of meaning, leads to despair. In his view, the challenge was not merely the absence of God, but the lack of any transcendent moral framework to guide humanity. At the core of Nietzsche's solution to this crisis was rejecting universal, objective truths. In his words, there are no facts, only interpretations.
I'll
For
explain
Nietzsche,
this idea real quick. The best way to imagine this is, let's say we're all in the same room and there's a door. We all try to explain that door with our own words, with our own conceptions, and we'll get very similar results. We'll all describe, oh, it's a wooden door, it's brown, it's this kind of wood, there's a frame around it that's metal. Like we'll all have some similar definition of the door, but the language we use is slightly different. While it might agree 99% of the way, that 1% difference means that we all interpret things a little bit different. And it's this difference that makes the difference in people. It's actually a beautiful thing because if we all thought the same thing, then guess what? There's no such thing as creation. There's no such thing as art. There's no such thing as human ingenuity. So it's really a beautiful thing, but it's we try to pigeonhole ourselves into the same box and say that we all fit into the same roles, that we all should believe the same things. And it's just like, this is not the case. Like what you believe should not be the same as me, and what I believe shouldn't be the same as anyone else. And we all have to form our own beliefs, and it's the accumulation of all of our good ideas that will drive humanity forward. But instead, we're all taught to say the same things. We're taught to believe the same things. This is why I don't like the school system so much because it's an inculcation system. It's not an education system. It's about telling you what to think, not teaching you how to think. If you teach the citizens how to think, then they're no longer citizens; they're sovereigns. Like I mean, that's the truth of it, but
the pursuit of a single, all-encompassing truth was a futile endeavor. Instead, he championed subjective experience, urging individuals to create values and meanings through personal expression and creativity. He believed the arts, philosophy, and literature were critical vehicles for this kind of self-creation, allowing individuals to tap into more profound.
creativity, any sort of artistic expression allows you to paint the canvas with the pieces of your soul that you can never express in any other manner. Um, you can't you can't listen to Sinatra without feeling a part of that man's life on in that song. You know what I mean? It's like there's pieces of ourselves that we can only find through creative expression. Creativity is really the way to happiness. If you can find a place to be creative every single day, you're gonna live a good life. And it's even if it takes you drawing some shitty like sketch, some shitty doodle, writing a terrible poem, even if it's not for anyone else, do it for yourself. I mean, this is like the genesis of Franz Kafka's last story. Franz Kafka's last story, it's called The Hunger Artist. To sum it up very quickly, it's this guy basically fasts in public, and it used to draw great crowds, but now it doesn't draw any crowds at all. And in his dying act, he basically fasts and no one else pays attention, but he breaks his record. And he like broke it by so many days that he can't even count because he starved himself so much. But like his dying idea, his dying thought is that like I succeeded at my art. I did my art justice. And it's almost haunting because the way Kafka died, he had tuberculosis and his throat shut so he could no longer eat food. So as he's editing this story, he's putting this message in and the main takeaway from it is that Kafka died unrecognized. If you say Franz Kafka's name, like the day he died, people will be like, who? You say his name like a few years later, he's one of the most famous writers in all of Europe. And it's like Kafka wrote for the sake of himself. He wrote so that he could express the parts of himself that were going unexpressed. He wrote so that he could put the pain he experienced of his relationship with his father on the paper. Like it's such a beautiful thing when you see expression at that level, and expression that's so raw and so pure. And you can do the exact same thing, because the thing about creativity is it gets easier and easier and easier. Creativity is a skill. When you can start accessing creativity and you can start working on these faculties, dude, just boom, boom. Like I tried to start writing like 2, 3 months ago. The stuff I was writing back then is so much worse than it is today. Like I almost don't like to read the stuff I write because I'm just operating at such a higher level now. And it's like it's so fun because anytime I'm feeling like something is going unsaid, I take out my phone and I just start typing. I take out my phone and I write a story, or I write some sort of philosophical thing, or I write some sort of idea that I've been focusing on. And through the process of that creative outlet, like I find a new truth, I find a new asset that was always inside of me that has never been expressed. Like the ideas I've been playing around with for weeks, for months, that I could never put into words. I put it on the paper and it just makes sense. And that's what you can do with yourself. You can do all these things. And it's not going to be easy at first. Like I mean, I used to be one of the least creative. Like, I was always creative, but I never allowed it to be shown. And it's only through having this channel, it's only through filming videos, it's only through writing things down and trying to get what I'm saying across. And it's the never ending process of like trying to be better and better and better and say it in a different way and say it in a way that resonates. Like that has just done so much development for me spiritually that I can't put into words. And it's like if you just go down the path of creativity, you will find all the answers you need. We'll get back into the video. I don't know if it made any sense. I hope it made sense.
Found more personal truths. However, Nietzsche didn't stop at cultural expressions. As he delved deeper into his philosophical explorations, he realized that even art and culture could become commodified, losing their authenticity. This
Think about art and culture now. Think about what's passed off as art. Think of what's passed off as music. Look at modern art. I get there's some interesting stuff. Like Jackson Pollock is that was the guy that would like paint on the huge canvases. Some of that looks cool, but like if I look at a piece of art and like I have to be like, well, it's art, that's why it's great. You know what I mean? It's like a banana peel taped to like a canvas sells for millions of dollars. Like what the fuck? Like what? Like people must just be laundering money or something through art. Like how is that worth that much money? And you can kind of see that like people nowadays, like rich people, don't view art for the sake of art. They don't view it for the sake of beauty. They view it for the sake of like a brag. It's the same thing with like a supercar. Like whatever Ferrari like above stock, like maybe the engine is super good, but like there's no car on the world that's worth $10 million. There's no watch in the world that's worth $1 million. Like at a certain point, it's not about the artistry. It's just about the name. It's just about the people will think I'm cool if I have like it's truly sad that we've tried to like monetize and make like art a status symbol when art should just be appreciated for what it is. You know what I mean? Like Van Gogh, yes, Van Gogh was the guy that cut his ear off. The story of him cutting his ear off is just so funny. It was basically like a woman that saw Van Gogh like was nice to him, and she was like, "Oh, I think you have nice ears," so he cut his ear off and gave it to her because no one had ever liked him up until then. But Van Gogh used to paint all day long outside of his job, and he would paint and he would paint and he would paint and he'd try to give the paintings to people that were really meaningful to him, like whether it was his mother or his brother. I don't remember exactly what family members he had, but like he was dying to give these paintings away. And after his death, those paintings went for millions of dollars. Like it's insane to see that like we don't even appreciate art when it's right in front of us.
led him to advocate for a philosophy that placed the individual, rather than society or culture, at the center.
the the common conception today is that we should put society first for the good of society, but I would argue that the good of the individual is good for society. When you have individuals who are authentic, who are great people, who aspire to do great things, and it's for a righteous mission, it's for nothing but the sake of self-fulfillment, nothing but the sake that in their heart they're doing something that they're so passionate about that they're going to just, put all of their time and energy into. Like when you have a bunch of people like that, think of what society would be. Instead, we put the collective instead of the individual, and the collective pulls from every single individual. No matter who you are, no matter how successful you are in society, you're unfulfilled because you're not yourself. I feel like I've been saying this a lot in the past few days, but like this is the idea that I've really been harkening on, and I've really been seeing in a lot of my readings.
This thinking emerged from Nietzsche's
Let me know if none
concept
of
of
this
the
stuff makes
Übermensch
sense either, because I can explain it in different ways. I can use like analogies.
or Overmind.
um, so in this is the idea in this book. That spoke Zarathustra, and the idea is you don't have to use Overman or Ubermensch. Just think Superman. That's the best way to say it. It's like when you can be all you can be, when you achieve your limitless potential, when you become a limitless being. That's the Ubermensch. That's the idea that like you drop everything holding you back, you drop everything in society telling you you have to be a certain way, and you become yourself. And that self is so pure. That self is so great. That's the idea of it.
The Übermensch represents an idealized version of
The Nazis were like obsessed with this idea, and it's so ironic because Nietzsche hated totalitarianism. He hated systems. He hated governments. It's like so ironic how like people take like one idea from someone and try to justify it.
oneself, a figure
The same thing with
transcending
Jung
traditional
too.
morality who pursues personal greatness and creative expression without being hindered by societal expectations or religious dogma. The Übermensch is defiant, unapologetically individualistic, and strategic in pursuing personal power, not power over others, but power over oneself. Nietzsche's philosophy
This is the idea of doing something for yourself, not doing it for others. So like why do people seek power? Why do people seek fame? It's really because they want the approval of others. But in seeking power and in seeking fame, you miss out what you're looking for. You need a sense of self-worth. You need to feel like you're in some way meaningful. So it's like a sacrifice of your individual responsibilities, your individual personality for the sake of others viewing you in a certain light. And if you look into like the greatest leaders throughout history, like they're always coming from a place where they felt inferior. They always came from a place where they needed to be more. They needed something. Like I think it's we really only see broken people that become presidents. Like I think it's very much impossible to be a somewhat sane individual and want to take that position on because it's like it I mean for 4 years, for 8 years, however long you're in the office, like you're getting woken up at all times of the night. You can't you can't go anywhere without Secret Service. You can't go to the bathroom without people like checking the room first. Like I don't think people understand like what we seek in this world is not what we really want. The things that need, the things that we want, it's really to compensate for a much deeper and a much more simple answer. The return to the self, the understanding of the self is all you need.
here advocates for self-mastery, where personal growth is fueled by a continuous process of overcoming limitations and striving for greatness. This relentless pursuit of self-improvement, which Nietzsche called self-overcoming, is fundamental to his answer to the question of meaning in a godless world. Yet Nietzsche's ideas also spark challenging questions. Is suffering truly necessary for growth?
It is. You need suffering because you can't appreciate the good times. Your sorrows deepen your joys. The more pain you've experienced in your life, the more meaningful it will be when you get to the mountaintop. That's why suffering happens. Because if you had a good day every single day of your life, would you know what a good day meant anymore? Or would they all kind of just become monotonous? It's the ups and downs of life that make life worth meaning, worth living. What good is an accomplishment if you didn't have to work for it? What good is a victory if it didn't take you years to get to the place where you become? I think we view suffering and we view it as a permanent thing. Suffering's only permanent if you allow it to be permanent. There's plenty of people that went through this world that experienced some horrific things, way worse than you could ever imagine, and they came out on the other end of it. Just ran across your channel. Uh,
Can a life marked by perpetual striving and dissatisfaction
I was
really lead to
confused.
fulfillment? And what happens if someone rejects Nietzsche's premise altogether, if they don't see life as a pursuit of greatness, or view suffering not as a means of self-overcoming, but as a burden to be avoided? Nietzsche's philosophy, while profound, is not without its critics, and these questions highlight the tension.
I think to good stuff. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was trying to read. I figured it was something positive, but I just the it trailed off. I was confused. Thank you, thank you. I think if you're critical of Nietzsche, I think you don't really understand there's the individuality aspect of things. When you look at Nietzsche and separate it from the individual, I think it's much harder to criticize him. Um, when you look into his life and you see that he basically wasted away to nothing. He was a bitter man in the end, and things didn't really go right for him in his life. I think it's a lot easier to say, well, if it didn't work for you, why should I believe it? But a lot of what he says is really analogous to Emerson in weird ways. Like I in the past talked bad about Nietzsche, but like I'm reading this book and I'm like, I don't disagree with anything in this. And it's like it's just a shame that like he I've read his later stuff, and maybe I should have read his earlier stuff sooner, and maybe I should have taken that into account more. But from what I'm reading now right now, I'm just so impressed. I'm so happy with the I don't know if it's wisdom, I don't know if it's insights, I don't know if it's just a new perspective, but it's so cool. I don't really like reading atheist stuff. I think it's very hard to make it interesting. I think Nietzsche is the smartest atheist who ever lived.
At the heart of his ideas. As Nietzsche himself experienced, pursuing philosophical truth can come at a cost. In his later years, he succumbed to madness, a decline that culminated in a public breakdown. He famously embraced a horse being flogged on the streets, whispering, "I understand you."
Oh, damn,
Whether this
Hypnotio's
episode
here. What's going on? This is weird. Yeah, I think we're in the Twilight Zone or something.
represented a contradiction of his philosophy, an outpouring of compassion in a man who championed strength and defiance, or a mind collapsing under the weight of its brilliance remains open to interpretation. Nietzsche died in 1900 at age 55, having never achieved the recognition he craved during his lifetime.
He- Nowadays, I think he's seen as like the end all be all for philosophy in the West. But again, it's at what cost? Um, I mean, we seek to be great, we seek things outside of ourselves, and really what Nietzsche needed was sympathy from himself. I mean, is it worth it to be remembered if you die in agony? I don't really think so. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my perspective. I meditate most of the day, so my perspective might be a lot different from you guys. But yeah, was he an atheist though? He said God is dead. Well, he said God is dead and man killed him. So I think maybe that's leaving the door open. Maybe he would have been open to some sort of theism. Maybe he would have been open to Taoism. That's the thing. I like. It's just sad to me reading Nietzsche because I see so much analogous with Emerson. I see so much of Jung in him. I see so much of like even Camus in him. And it's like if I could have just, told him, yeah, check out Taoism. Like I think he would have I think he would have loved it. I really do. Because we a lot of great philosophy if you cycle back to Eastern ideologies, Eastern spiritual practices, it's all the same. It's so crazy. But I mean, all right, we're gonna tie a lot of things together here. Plato, Socrates were all influenced by Pythagoras. I think they actually also went to the East as well, but Pythagoras was taught by um, ancient Egyptians and ancient Indians. So he got a lot of the Eastern ideology, um, and then made it his own. So like this is why you see a lot of the roots of philosophy and Eastern thought. I mean, if you read Stoicism, it's just Taoism light. It's just Taoism without the spiritual component of it, without the idea that like things kind of all come together. Like the idea of Stoicism that you follow logos, you follow logic, you follow order. What is that? That's the Tao. That's the way. Is eternal recurrence of the same? I have to read that. I haven't. What is that? What book is that in? The eternal recurrence. I know what the idea is simply because you keep talking about it. What book is that in? Because I don't know if you were here when I was talking about it, but I've been reading this one. Dude, this book is this might be a new favorite of mine. Um, like it's I'm so happy that the last two books I've read are the Red Book and Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Like what a way to like spend your time. Like it really can't get any better than that. Like some of the most interesting books I've ever read back to back. Gay Science, maybe. All right, I might read this at some point very soon. But I so mistakenly I looked this book up to find out what this book was about. And it might have to be the next thing I read because it's basically Aldous Huxley tying together every single great esoteric thinker and finding the common thread. And I'm like, I need to fucking read this. Like this seems like something that is gonna be a new fate. Like I was just reading the reviews of it and I was like salivating. I'm like, I need to pick this up. But dude, I picked up so many books that I want to read. Um, I have James Joyce now, Portrait of of the Artist as a Young Man. Like this, I also got hold on, I'll get it real quick. I got this book. Um, I got Robert Anton Wilson's like most famous trilogy. I'm like, I really want to read all of these at the same time, but I just haven't like I haven't had a day where I've had like well, I haven't like 6 hours to spare, but like I haven't had a day where I just sit down and read for like 6 hours and so long. Maybe I'll do it this weekend if I have time. I have like a few things I got to do, but maybe I just sit down and like read like two, three books tomorrow. I don't know. That's really what I want to do, but you got the Super Bowl. I got to go see family. I got to go do some work. Section 341 of Gay Science. And thus spoke, he discusses the vision and the riddle. Okay, okay. All right. Yeah, I definitely have to um read more of Nietzsche because as I'm reading more of him, I'm like starting to be like, I don't disagree with him here. Maybe it's just his later stuff where he's like like a angsty like incel like kind of that's kind of how I describe like Beyond Good and Evil. That's the vibes it gives me. But maybe when he's younger, he's a lot more pleasant. What if some day or night demon was to steal you into your loneliest, loneliest to say, for life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live it once more. That's actually, damn. Is he saying that for the sake of like, make the most of your life? Like, is it that idea? Or does he believe that that happens? Because either way, it's interesting. Either way, Manly P. Hall said that when you always have to face your problems. Like, let's say you jump off a bridge in Minecraft, you get brought back into similar circumstances, and you need to face it, and you'll continue going through it until you face it one day. Um, you know, if you say something happened in Minecraft, you can say anything.
Time. His works were largely ignored, and he lived in obscurity. Yet after his death, his ideas exploded into public consciousness, influencing generations of thinkers, artists, and political movements. Unfortunately, some of his ideas were
It's people's
misused.
opinions of him that I disagree with. Okay, okay. Okay, that's a really inspiring idea. I don't know. It's also the thing of like people hear things secondhand. Um, I was never, I was never like, I don't think his opinion is valuable. I just was like, it's not fun to read. But I'm reading Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, it's one of the best things I've ever read. So it pisses me off because I've had this book for like a year, and I just never picked it up.
Used and misinterpreted in ways that Nietzsche would likely have hated, but his intellectual legacy remains potent and undeniable. As you reflect on Nietzsche's life and philosophy, consider this. How much are you
Different
willing to
translation.
sacrifice in the pursuit of greatness? Can suffering be transformed into strength, or does it sometimes break us beyond repair? Nietzsche believed in the possibility of self-transcendence, but the path he laid out was not an easy one. It demands introspection, courage, and a willingness to
Sad thing is he failed this journey too. The one mother, one father. There's
confront the void left by the absence of absolute truths. And yet, perhaps that is where life's most profound meaning can be found, not in the answers we are given, but in the ones we create for ourselves. In his famous words, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how.
he who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. That's a great quote. All right. I've been seeing Kant come up everywhere, and I have no idea about him. So we'll go through this. This is one philosopher that I don't really know anything about Schopenhauer either. Maybe I should know more about him. I have a book by him, but I haven't read it. Same thing with Kierkegaard. The next thing I'm going to read is by Kierkegaard. Um, and I'm just interested to see where some of these guys go in different ways. This one of the next books I'm going to read. But yeah, I just like seeing different opinions and why things are said in different ways.
Immanuel Kant is a philosopher who tried to work out how human beings could be good and kind outside of the exhortations and blandishments of traditional religions. He was born in 1724 in the Baltic city of Königsberg, which at that time was part of Prussia and now belongs to Russia, renamed Kaliningrad. Kant's parents were very modest. His father was a saddle maker. Kant
Russian city names are just so funny.
never had much money, a fact he dealt with cheerfully by living
Stalingrad,
very
St.
modestly. It
Petersburg,
wasn't until he was in his
Kaliningrad.
50s that he became a fully salaried professor and attained a moderate degree of prosperity. His family were deeply religious and very strict. Later in life, Kant did not have any conventional religious beliefs, but he was acutely aware of just how much religion had contributed to his parents' ability to cope with all the hardships of their existence, and how useful religion could be in fostering social cohesion and community. Kant was physically very slight, frail, and anything but good-looking, yet he was
And he's super disciplined and did the same thing every day for like 40 years. Who? Are we talking about Kierkegaard? I think Kierkegaard was like neurotic about it, like OCD. And like he was like he like stressed him out so much. I think that's right, right.
was very sociable, and
Maybe it
some of
was
his
Kant.
colleagues
I
used
don't
to
know.
criticize him for going to too many parties. When eventually he was able to entertain, he had rules about conversation at his table. At the start of a dinner party, he decreed that people should swap stories about what had been happening recently. Then there should be a major phase of reflective discourse, in which those present attempted to clarify an important topic. And finally,
Kant.
there should be a
Okay.
closing period of hilarity,
Dude, this sounds like the worst party
so
ever.
that everyone left in a good mood. He died in 1804, in his 80th year, in Königsberg, having rarely felt the need to spend any time outside the city in which he was born. Kant was writing at a highly interesting period in history we now know as the Enlightenment. In an essay called What is Enlightenment, published in 1784, Kant proposed that the identifying feature of his age was its growing secular.
I forgot who it was. One of the philosophers. Maybe it was him. Dude, again, philosophers are really fucking weird people. Like to wanna like break down the purpose of life instead of just living. Like you gotta be a you gotta have to have something wrong with you. So it's like it's probably just more than one that are very particular.
Secularism. Intellectually, Kant welcomed the declining belief in Christianity, but in a practical sense, he was also alarmed by it. He was a pessimist about human character and believed that we are by nature intensely prone to corruption. It was this awareness that led him to formulate what would be his life's project, the desire to replace religious authority with the authority of reason, that is, human.
I don't know about that one. I mean, you can think this is a good idea, but I think spirituality ties together the idea that all human beings come from the same source, come from the same entity or substance or whatever. And when you believe that we all come from something, when you believe that there's something that ties us all together, you have more compassion. I think at a certain point, like when you go pure rationalism, like this is what leads to the ideas of like the eugenics movement, the ideas of, oh, we're better because we have higher IQ. Like I don't I don't necessarily think like reason is always the answer because reason could always be misjudged. Like reason is in the eyes of the beholder. Like it's really subjective. High intelligence and education probably has that effect.
intelligence. When it came to religion,
Yeah.
Kant summed up his views in a book entitled Religion Within the Bounds of Reason Alone.
Hypnotic, you weren't here the other day, but we were watching a video and it was on Schopenhauer. And like the dude was like framing it as if it was like the most insightful thing that has ever been said. And it was like Schopenhauer was like, yeah, smart people get judged a lot because dumber people think that smart people are judging them and think less of themselves because they're not as smart. It's like this is the stupidest and like this is the stupidest observation I've ever heard. I literally just turned off the video instantly. Like that's what I think a lot of philosophy is. A lot of philosophy is just boring. Like it's not anything like crazy. It's not anything that like if you're going to break down systems, replace it with something better. That's my take on things. Like if you're going to say, well, this doesn't make sense, then find another solution. So far, the only true solution I've seen is going back to the individual, the Emerson view of things. Everything else kind of is just like maybe this helps you on a personal level, but I think there's some flaws here.
Here he argued that although historical religions had all been wrong
Yeah, C.S. Lewis would say, "We're making men with hollow chests." I know you're happy me quoting
in the
him.
content of what they believed, they had latched onto a great
I,
need
I know
to
you're like
promote
like
ethical
giddy.
behavior, a need which still remained. It was in this context that Kant came up with the idea for which he is perhaps still most famous, what he called the categorical imperative. This strange sounding term first appeared in a horrendously named work, Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals. The categorical imperative states, act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. What did Kant mean by this?
That's like that's like this like the most intellectual way to try to sound smart.
This was only a very formal restatement of an idea that's been around for a long time, something we meet with in all the main religions. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Kant was offering a handy way of testing
Wait, let's go back. Act according to the maxim by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal. That is the dumbest way to say it. Maybe it's just because it's old English translation.
statement of an idea that's been around
You
for
must
a
have been
long
very
time,
bored, yeah.
something we meet with in all the main religions. Do unto
I mean, they
others
didn't have
as you would have
TikTok or
them do unto
Facebook
you.
or like the thing about why I think people in old times were smarter, at least like philosophically, is because they didn't have all these things to just dumb them down with. They didn't have these devices that like you can literally spend your entire lifetime on and you'll never get bored. Like there's endless content that I can access right now from my phone. There's like I can literally be on my phone till the rest of time and I won't have gone through stuff. Like these people didn't have these portals, what we'll call them, and they had to actually think about things. I mean, like how else would Tesla come up with these ideas aside from like staring at a wall all day? You know what I mean? Like if Tesla was distracted the way that we're distracted nowadays, that dude wouldn't be remembered at all. And this is why it's like your attention is the most important thing you have. This is something that I'm like really harkening on right now. I'm really trying to fix in my life right now because I know I have what's like whatever is inside of me. I just need to get it out. I just need to get the ideas out of me and I need to put it in a cohesive way. But I can't expect to be as successful as I should be when I pick up my phone and for the next 10 minutes it's hard for me to focus again. When I go and I put something on TV while I'm doing something else, like it's you bought a cat S22 flip phone. How's it working? Does that help you? I just deleted all social media off my phone. So like that was instantly like a lot. I'm not really checking it as much. Um, I need to find a better way though. I need to find something else. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick. We'll be back in a second. Yeah, like the phone. I don't use social media except for YouTube. I just program all day and sleep. It sounds pretty good, to be honest. I don't know, like everyone wants to be so involved in everything. Everyone wants to have their fingers in a bunch of different things, but I think like the simple life is the good life. When you don't have anything in excess, when you don't seek for external validation, this is when you're gonna be the most happy because you're the spending the most time with yourself. You're spending the most time with your true self. Whereas like if you go out to parties, if you go to clubs, if you, oh, I need to be popular, I need to be this, I need to take these pictures and then post them to Instagram. And then if they don't get enough likes in a certain amount of time, then I'm going to delete them and post another edit. Like, it's just like the more we try to do these things, the less we're going to be happy. And it's just like, and just simplify your life. And that's really the way out. That's really the way to happiness.
Kant was offering a handy way of testing the morality of an action by imagining how it would be if it were generally practiced and you were the victim of it. It might be tempting to filch a few pads of paper from the stationery cupboard at work. It seems like a small thing, but if everyone did this, the cupboard and society at large would need a lot of guards. Similarly, if you have an affair and keep it quiet from your partner, you might feel that's okay, but the categorical imperative comes down against this, because you would then have to embrace the idea that it would be equally okay for your partner to have affairs and not tell you. The categorical imperative is designed to shift our perspective, to get us to see our own.
Like, how is this like, how is he credited with this idea though? Like, this isn't like, this is basic logic. Oh, don't do something if you don't want someone to do the exact same thing. Like, that's like, how is this your like founding idea? Should I just like recontextualize this idea and make it my own? In 100 years, people be like, this guy was really fucking smart. I'm gonna have a newborn in a month. This is the best time of my life for sure. Big change come. That's awesome. Going to sleep. I have to wake up early tomorrow. Beautiful topic tonight. Dude, thanks for giving a nice message. I haven't seen you in a few days, so I've been like, where's Dario at? But yeah, thanks for coming here to be positive, even if you're only here for a second. Yeah, I hope you like the video tomorrow. Maybe guys, should we end the stream right now so we just don't have anything else to watch? Just we'd really get one on him.
Behavior in less immediately personal terms, and thereby recognize some of its limitations. Kant went on to argue that the core idea of the categorical imperative could be stated in another way. Act so as to treat people always as ends in themselves, never as mere means. This was intended as a replacement for the Christian injunction for universal.
Like what? Like why did you dude, I'm just gonna take lessons from the Bible and then tell you that I came up with them. Okay, don't judge anyone unless you're already perfect. Coin that, that's me. I said that. Honor your mother and father. The love of money is evil. Like what? Like I haven't been like it's so funny that we're coming from Nietzsche because like no matter who you are, you're wowed by his ideas. You're like he has a point there. Even if you vehemently disagree with him, you're like okay, that made me think. like maybe I'm very uneducated when it comes to Kant, but like so far this is not groundbreaking stuff. And I'm sure he's done something because there's no way that we would remember his name if that's his only idea. But like maybe it's just a video painting this idea out to be like insightful or something.
love, the command to love one's
I just
neighbour.
can't stop
To
laughing.
treat a person as an end, for Kant, meant keeping in view that they had a life of their own in which they were seeking happiness and fulfillment and deserved justice
Wow, the basic idea of perspective. Oh, oh.
and fair treatment. The
People are not
categorical imperative,
objects.
Kant argued, is the voice of our own rational selves. It's what we all truly believe when we're thinking sensibly. It's the rule our own intelligence gives us. Kant extended his thinking about the categorical imperative into the political sphere. He believed that the central duty of government is to ensure liberty. But he sensed that there was something terribly wrong with the ordinary definition of freedom or liberty. It should not be thought of in libertarian terms as the ability to do just whatever we want. We are free only when we act in accordance with our own best natures, and we are slaves whenever we are under the rule of our own passions or those of others. As Kant put it,
Yeah, like I don't know. Whenever you get into political theory, it's just not exciting. It's just very boring. Maybe it was less common to think that way in the past. It definitely was. It definitely was because it's a secular ideology. That's probably why. You're right.
a free will and a will under moral laws are one and the same. So, freedom isn't an absence of government. A free society isn't one that allows people more and more opportunity to do whatever they happen to fancy. It's one that helps everyone become more reasonable. The good state represents the rational element in us all. It rules according to a universally valid will under which everyone can be free. So, government, ideally, is the externalized, institutionalized version of the best parts of ourselves. It might be a
It's so funny looking at the state of the government. Yeah, this is the best part of myself. Marco Rubio is the best part of myself. Dan Crenshaw, Nancy Pelosi, the best part of myself.
bit surprising at first to discover that in 1793 Kant published a major work on beauty and art, The Critique of Judgment. It might seem like a bit of a sideline for a thinker otherwise concerned with politics and ethics, but Kant held that his ideas about art and beauty were the cornerstones of his entire philosophy. As we've been seeing, Kant thought that life involved a constant struggle between our better selves and our passions, between duty and pleasure. Beauty can
Yeah, I agree with this. This makes sense. Again, these aren't like maybe it's the historical context that he's saying this in. I think this could be a lot of the framework that is behind our society because it said 1793, 1783. So maybe some of these ideas have been put forward in school. Maybe some of these things, that's why they seem so basic to us, and maybe it was very unique at the time.
Kant especially liked roses, vines, apple trees, and birds, delights us in a very special and important way. It's a reminder of and goad to our better selves. Unlike so much else in our lives, our love of beauty is, in Kant's word,
Yeah, I think you're right, Hypnotic. It definitely influenced a lot of people, and then they built upon those ideas. I think you're right. Because although I don't, like so far, I've not been like, wow, this is some deep wisdom that I need to follow for the rest of my life. Like this is, it just kind of seems like average stuff.
disinterested. It takes us out of our
It's
narrow
it seems like what your like most degenerate friend posts on Instagram when he's trying to get his life
selfish concerns, but in a charming, delightful way, without being stern or demanding. The beauty of nature is a continual, quiet, and insistent reminder of our common universal being. A pretty flower is just as attractive to the tired farm worker as to the prince. The graceful flight of a swallow is as lovely to a child as to the most learned professor. For Kant, the role of art is to embody the most important ethical ideas. It's a natural extension of philosophy.
together. So you're just making it sound so boring though. Like when you try to define art, you take away from its essence. What is art except the artist trying to put their soul into the work? What is art aside from the expression of God onto the material plane? Like when we try to break down what makes art great, I think this is what takes away from it. Like listen to a Sinatra song. Is like what about it makes it great? Sure, he has a great voice, but like plenty of people have great voices and the songs don't. You don't feel the depth in them. You don't feel the soul in them. You don't feel the spirit in them. You listen to Sinatra, you're like, I have like a personal relationship with this man and he died before I was born. Like that's the feeling, like, you know what I mean? It's like we can't quantify these ideas. I think when you try to put them into words, it takes away from it. Um, I think this is why, like, um, the only true way to describe art, the only way to describe beauty is through poetry. It's because you can paint a picture, you can leave room for interpretation, and that interpretation hits at the meaning. When you try to make it so, um, when you try to make it so like rigid, I think it takes away from the value. What is philosophy except trying to explain why things are great? All right, well, you need to ruin my whole point. I mean, yeah, philosophy is like trying to like, I feel like it's just trying to like over explain things a lot of time.
Kant held that we needed to have art continually before us so as to benefit from vivid illustrations and memorable symbols of good behaviour, and thereby keep the wayward parts of ourselves in check. Kant's books were dense, abstract, and highly intellectual, but in them he sketched a very important project that remains crucial to this day. He wanted to understand how the better, more reasonable parts of our natures could be strengthened so as to reliably win out over our inbuilt weaknesses and selfishness.
I think it's an interesting idea. It's just,
As Kant saw it, he was engaged in the task of developing a secular, rational version of what religions had, very imperfectly, always attempted to do: help us to be good.
I mean, I don't think you can do it without, it doesn't have to be a religion. It could be some spiritual aspect. I think when you go pure reason, when you go pure logic, you take away the depths from the human soul. And we're spiritual beings, we're physical beings, we're mental beings. And when you don't fulfill an aspect of that, you leave something on the table. You leave something to be desired. And for a lot of people, they won't recognize this fact, and they're like revolt. I mean, they're like we want to make systems perfect. We want to create governments and societies that are amazing, but like every society is the seed of rebellion, and every government and every law that's passed, someone is going to disagree. I think Camus said it best when he says, "I rebel, therefore we, yeah, I rebel, therefore we exist." It's the idea that you can't have humans without the idea of rebellion. The very moment a rebellion wins out and the new government takes over is the start of the next rebellion. I think this is like a fundamental side of things, and it's like to seek perfection from humans is just a goal that I don't think is possible. All right, Aristotle's gonna be boring. Hegel. Maybe we can get through this one as well. How long are we streaming for? An hour? Okay. I'll keep going a little longer. It takes me so long to get through a video. It's so funny.
Georg Friedrich Hegel was born in Stuttgart in 1770.
So too
Intellectually,
low.
he was adventurous, but in externals, respectable, conventional, and proud of it. He ascended the academic tree and reached the topmost branch, head of the University of Berlin.
We were watching a video the other day, and it was basically just saying that Schopenhauer was Hegel's biggest hater. Like Schopenhauer would set up a lecture in the room next door to Hegel, and Schopenhauer's would be empty and Hegel's would be full.
When he was 60 years old. He died the following year. Hegel wrote some very long and very famous books, among them The Phenomenology of Spirit, The Science of Logic, and Elements of the Philosophy of Right. But, we'll be frank, he wrote horribly. His work is confusing and complicated when it should be clear and direct. He tapped into a weakness of human nature, to be trustful of grave-sounding, incomprehensible prose. This has made philosophy much weaker in the world than it should be, and it's made it much harder for us to hear the valuable things that Hegel has to say to us, amongst which a small number of lessons stand out. Firstly, important parts of ourselves can be found in history. In Hegel's
That's so funny how he starts out the video saying, like, yeah, this guy is terrible.
day, a standard European way of looking at the past was to consider it as primitive and to feel proud of how much progress had been made to get us to the modern age. But in his book, The Phenomenology of Spirit, published in 1807, Hegel argued that every era can be looked at as a repository of a particular kind of wisdom. This means we need to go back in time to rescue things which have gone missing.
I think it's an interesting idea. You look at the ancient Egyptians, they understood um, higher faculties, they understood harmonics, they understood sound vibrations. They were more clairvoyant than we are, or we could ever even imagine to be. Um, Greeks were well versed in philosophy, well versed in that aspect of things. We're very technologically sound, but morally speaking, I think a lot of people are broken. You like this dude's accent? What's up, Gorlami? How's everything?
So, for example, we might need to mine the history of ancient Greece to fully grasp the idea of what community can be, something which has been lost in the modern age. Or the Middle Ages can teach us, as no other era can, about the role of honour, even if this period featured appalling attitudes to children or the rights of women. Progress is never linear, Hegel tells us. There is wisdom at every stage.
I think this is a pretty good idea. Um, and I think this is what makes the study of history so fascinating. Why else do old old men all watch the History Channel till like 2 a.m.? Like, there's something about the bravery to step off the boats on D-Day and knowing that you're probably going to die, persist in walking forward and walking into the spray of a turret. Like it's, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like there's a certain bravery that those men possess that no one in our generation does. You know what I mean? Like even our soldiers today, like they don't face certain death like that. It's truly inspiring to see the spirit of some men who gave it all so that we can have our freedom. And it's like that's something I'll never have. That's an idea I'll never accept. That's an experience I'll never understand. Same thing with World War I too. I think World War I is like really gets overshadowed. Like the pure brutality of um, World War I is like trench town, man. Oh, what do you think about Eric Newman? I don't know who that is. Should I know them? I don't think they had a choice. I mean, it's one thing to not have a choice, but like it's another to like someone had to do it. Someone had to be the first one to run out. And maybe we shouldn't look to the people at the back of the lines for inspiration. Maybe we shouldn't look at their bravery, but the people at the front were damn.
Which, says Hegel, points us to the task of the historian. To be a historian is to be someone who should rescue from the past those ideas that are most needed to compensate for the blind spots of the present. Secondly, learn from ideas you
Yeah, I better
dislike.
hope I never understand
Hegel
AI.
was a great believer in learning from one's intellectual enemies, from points of view we disagree with or that feel alien. That's because he held the bits of the truth are always getting scattered even in unappealing or peculiar places.
When you can observe someone that you don't like and find inspiration in that, find something they do right, find some tactic or skill they have that you don't possess, that's where you're going to find the real growth. It's always easier to find someone that's like us, to confirm our biases, to see what they do and try to copy them. But it's throughout observing people that we don't like, we don't appreciate, we almost despise, and finding something good in them. Like it's very interesting to do.
And we should dig them out by asking always, what sliver of sense
Even with people that you don't look up to, even with people that you disagree with, like in day-to-day life, it doesn't have to be like some historical figure, it doesn't have to be a celebrity, it doesn't have to be a political leader. Find the people in your life that you don't like. Why don't you like them? What is it about them? When you can find something good in people that you despise, this is where you really, really have a growth.
and reason might be contained in otherwise frightening or foreign phenomena? Nationalism, for instance, has had many terrible manifestations, even in Hegel's day. But Hegel's move was to ask what underlying good idea or important need
He wrote a book called The Origins of and History of Consciousness. Oh, that sounds cool. Sounds cool. I just didn't. I've never heard of him. But if he's Jungian psychology, I'll like him. If you're in my Discord, send me that because I'm gonna forget. It sounds interesting. Maybe I should explore like Jung's disciples. But the thing is, if I want to read Jungian psychology, I'm like very partial to Jung. But if you think it's a really good book, then just remind me. I have so much shit I have to read, but if you send it out, I'll I'll look into it at least.
might be hiding within the bloody history of nationalism. He proposed that it's the need for people to
He's
feel
Jung's best
proud
student.
of
Okay,
where they
that's
come
interesting.
from, to identify with something beyond merely their
Jung wrote the foreword. All right, you're really selling me on this book, aren't you? Like when you said, dude, Like the funniest meme is like, but Kanye made graduation. Like, dude, like the people that were like trying to defend him, it just kept looking worse and worse. Than like like isn't he like addicted to like laughing gas or something? He has like fake teeth now. Like, bro, like I feel so bad for him because like that's just some dude that just had the wrong people around him. Like truly, like Kanye is a creative genius, but you shouldn't listen to creative geniuses on anything else. Like, oh, I'm gonna take all my teeth out and put in metal teeth. Like, uh, why? Like, why? Like I get like doing things in the creative manner, but like just certain things aren't good ideas. Certain things are a little too out there, man. Did you finish the Red Book? Yeah, yeah, I did. I really liked it. Working my way up to Young from Newman. That's interesting because I like. Okay, I don't think I'd read any psychology aside from Jung. I'm gonna read Freud at some point, but to me, psychology is just boring. But Jung steeps it with a lot of mysticism, a lot of allegorical symbolism, a lot of metaphysics. Yeah, he got hurt. He lost his dream girl. He's having a hard time. Yeah, and the thing is, like how much of it is like him just being wronged by people and like taking drugs on top of that. Like, I mean, the guy's just going through a tough time, and it's like, what do you expect, man? Like, do you expect the guy to be sane? Do you expect the guy to sound reasonable? It's just sad that like there's certain things you can't do and not destroy your legacy. Like, I mean, not saying what he did was right, but Mel Gibson, it took him like 20 years after that one phone call was leaked to build back his career. Um, and just now he's starting to get recognized again. Now he's starting to get invited on things like very you like the Jungian archetypes? I haven't studied those. I don't know. Like archetypes are interesting, but it's not like I think the anima is more interesting than everything else. But that's the last thing of Jung I really need to dive deep down into because I think I've explored everything else.
their own achievements and to anchor their identities beyond the ego. Hegel is a hero of the thought that really important ideas may be in the hands of people you regard, at first glance, as beneath contempt. Thirdly, progress.
It's so true, though. I mean, you get the greatest advice from the places you expect it the least. Like, think of how many homeless people have like said like insightful things, and then they go right back to being a crazy homeless guy. Like,
Is messy. Hegel believed that the world makes progress, but only by lurching from one extreme to another, as it seeks to overcompensate for a previous mistake. He proposed that it generally takes 3 moves before the right balance on any issue can be found, a process that he named the dialectic. He was often thinking of the complex twists and turns that brought about the modern state. We can also think of the slow path towards sensible attitudes to sex in our own time. The Victorians imposed too much repression, yet the 1960s may have turned out to be too liberal. It
yeah, I know about Hermeticism. It's interesting. You see it in everything else. Hermeticism is really just it's like it's the building blocks of every other spiritual system, kind of.
might only be by the 2020s that we'll find the right balance between extremes. All this can seem the most appalling waste of time, but Hegel insists that the painful stepping from error to error is inevitable, something we must expect and reconcile ourselves to when planning our lives or
Wisdom and
contemplating history
efficacy
books.
aren't always found. So yeah, yeah, that's so true. I have a friend that like he's like a very smart guy, but you would never know because he's like he just like doesn't. He's not a real person. Like he ate, he ate like 21 like cheese sticks. Like you know like those like maybe it was cheddar, maybe it was mozzarella. I don't know what kind of cheese it was. I don't think it matters. But he ate like 21 of them and then went to the hospital and he's lactose intolerant and he didn't know why he had to go to the hospital. But like sometimes he'll give an interesting take on something. It's just like polar opposites. Like this dude like he's very good when it comes to like you know how like certain physical therapists like just know how certain muscles move? He's very good at like intuitively understanding these things, but like he like won't do it on himself. Like his body is like destroyed and like he's like, oh, I'm just too lazy to like it's just like it just makes no sense.
Sometimes, in this process of moving from error to error, we will find a new solution that manages to synthesize the good qualities of the previous solutions to make something really new and different and better. 4. Art has a purpose. Hegel vigorously rejected the idea of art for art's sake. Painting, music, architecture, literature, and design all have a major job to do. We need them so that important insights can become powerful and helpful in our lives. Art is, in Hegel's formulation, the sensuous presentation
I don't know what that means.
of ideas. Just knowing ideas often leaves us cold. For example, in theory, we believe that conflict in Syria is an important one. In practice, however, we just switch off. In principle, we know we should be more forgiving to our partners, but this abstract conviction gets forgotten at the least provocation. The point of art, Hegel realized, is not so much to come up with startlingly new or strange ideas, but to take the good, helpful, important thoughts we already think we know and make them stick more imaginatively in our minds. 5. We need new institutions. Hegel took a
No. Like I said, like the institutions are like bloated at this point. Like the education system is really just more about like the administration and like how much the administration gets paid. That's why college is so expensive. And it's not so much about actually that was not a good description of your friend. It literally is, bro. He's like this dude doesn't make any sense. Like some of the insights he has are like I'm like okay, that's actually like pretty interesting. Like it for me to like stop what I'm saying to like say, admit that like it there's something to it. There's something where I'm like, you know what? I didn't always see it this way. But like at the same time, he's one of the dumbest people I've ever met. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the people that can't take their own damn advice. He's one of them. It's so funny.
very positive view of institutions and of the power they can wield. This was a point Hegel made again and again in different ways. For ideas to be active and effective in the world,
Oh,
a
okay.
lot more is
Okay.
needed than that ideas are simply correct. To make major truths powerful in
You're
society,
saying that's
we
his
need
archetype?
employees and buildings and budgets and legal advisors. Institutions allow for the scale of time and power that big projects need to become effective in the world. So, as new needs of a society get recognized, they should ideally lead
Read Young Psychological Types. What book is it in? Is it in psychology? What is it? I can't remember the title. Ignorance is bliss. It really is. I'm the dumbest smart person I ever met too. I feel like that's a good thing though. I mean, in certain regards, it's like it's really endearing. Like this dude is one of the most fun people to hang out with because you know he's just gonna do something really fucking stupid at any moment. But like at the same time, like it's very frustrating because he can't wake up like before like 2 p.m. And it's like I don't know what to do with you, man.
not just to new books, but to the formation of new institutions. Nowadays, we might say we need major new institutions to focus on relationships, consumer education, career choice, mood management, and how to bring up less damaged children. Hegel helps us to see valuable insights where we might initially resist them, in art, in institutions, in the ideas of our enemies, and in the strange mistakes of the past. His insight is that growth requires the clash of divergent ideas, and therefore that it will be painful and slow. But at least once we know this, we don't have to compound our troubles by thinking them abnormal. Hegel gives us a more accurate and hence more manageable view of ourselves, our difficulties, and where we are in history.
Psychological. Okay, I'll pick it up at some point. That's pretty interesting. That was much better than Kant. Let's see if there's anything. Cults, Camus, Kierkegaard, just none others.
Soren Kierkegaard was a brilliant, gloomy, anxiety-ridden, often hilarious
Yeah, this was the one I was talking about, Hypnodio. The guy that was like super neurotic about things. That's the one I was thinking
Danish
about.
19th century philosopher, the author of 22 books, of which 3 continue to make his name. He was born in an immensely wealthy family in Copenhagen in 1813, the youngest of 7 children. Death was
Sparta
around him
Collection.
constantly
Okay.
from a young age,
I
and
think
was
I
to
have it. I
obsess
think
him
I give it
throughout
to my
his
roommate
career.
though.
It is, in a sense, his only theme. Not only was he extremely physically frail, by the time he was 22, all his siblings had died, except for he and a brother. It drove him to furious production of books over 15 years. On a single day in 1843, he published no less than 3 works. He
That's crazy. 3 books to publish in one day.
wasn't writing for the money. He was working to save himself,
What's
or what
that
he
one?
thought
Explain
humanity.
that one.
As it happened, he made it to the age of 42, then died of an excruciating spinal disease. In Either Or and Fear and Trembling, what Kierkegaard wants us to do above all is wake up and give up our cosy sentimental illusions. He systematically attacks the pillars of modern life, our faith in family, our trust in work, our attachment to love, and our general sense that life has purpose and meaning. His enemies were the smug in all their guises, particularly the prosperous Danish haute bourgeoisie and the members of the established Danish
It just sounds like angry so far.
church. He tells us, "As I grew up, I opened my eyes and saw the real world, and I began to laugh, and I haven't stopped since. I saw that the meaning of life was to get a livelihood, that the goal of life was to be a high court judge, that the brightest joy of love was to marry a well-off girl, that wisdom was what the majority said it was, that passion was to give a speech, that courage was to risk being fined $10, that
All right, so I agree with all these sentiments. Just interesting to see where he goes. Do I believe in astrology? Yeah. All right. The people that built the pyramids so finely that to this day you can't slide a piece of paper in between the rocks were obsessed with the stars. I think I have to give some credit to it, right?
that cordiality was to say you're welcome after a meal, and that the fear of God was to go to communion once a year. That's what I saw, and I laughed." Kierkegaard was especially caustic about the 19th century understanding of love and the new ideology of passionate marriage, which aimed to unite desire with prudence, and suggested that one could enjoy all the thrills of a love affair and at the same time all the stability of a long-term relationship. But Kierkegaard mocked the notion that
That's so insane. Like people used to have arranged marriages, so they'd be like, "Oh, I could just have like someone on the side." That's so crazy.
one could ever fuse romantic love with marriage, that one could have passion and sex, and at the same time children, stability and routine. He respected both. He just couldn't believe that you could have them both at the same time in a cozy
Yeah,
marriage
the mind.
sanctified by the state
I
and the
mean, they
neighbours.
really all learned
His belief
from
arose out of his own tortured love life. He fell in love with a beautiful,
same source,
precocious and
but
talented 18-year-old girl called Regine Olsen, only then to break off the engagement as he realised that to try and live with her forever would also mean killing the love that had drawn him to her. Everywhere he turned, Kierkegaard saw intolerable incompatibilities and impossible choices. It led him to one memorable explosion in Either Or. Marry and you will regret it. Don't marry, you will also regret it. Marry or don't marry, you will.
this guy's like, this is just like so funny. Like he's just dealing with his own issue.
Regret it either way. Laugh at the world's foolishness, you will regret it. Weep over it, you'll regret that too. Hang yourself, you'll regret it. Don't hang yourself, and you'll regret that too. Whether you hang yourself or don't hang yourself, you will regret both. This, gentleman, is the essence of all philosophy. The mention of laughter is not a coincidence.
It's just like it's kind of funny, is it not? It's like, all right, like what are you gonna like? How are these the conclusions you got to? You know what I mean? It's like I'm all for breaking down the things that we believe and we hold so highly in esteem and saying that, you know what, it's really this, it's really that. But it's like to not see any good, to not see any joy, to not see any happiness, it's such a sad way of going about things. It's just a sad way to handle things. And it's like, if it works for you, all right. I just don't think it's gonna work. I mean, it's maybe it's what like drove him to be so crazy about things. I mean, it said he died at 42. Like, it's not. This is back in the day, so maybe it's different. But like, is it really worth it to drive yourself mad and die so young?
Key to Kierkegaard's philosophy is that the only intelligent, tactical response to life's horror is to laugh defiantly at it. Rarely has a philosopher taken humour as seriously.
All right, I agree with
Kierkegaard
that.
is often described as the founder of the philosophical movement known as existentialism, because in him we find all the themes that would so interest later thinkers like Sartre, Camus and Heidegger. The book that fascinated the existentialists was
Bro,
Kierkegaard's The Concept of Anxiety, published in
this guy brushes teeth.
1844, in which he emphasized a new word, angst,
They
or
just,
angst as we
they
know it
must
in
have like just caught that guy with the worst angle. Like, how is it the only photo you could have used?
English, a condition where we understand how many choices we face and how little understanding we can ever have of how to exercise these choices wisely. As Kierkegaard wrote, life can only be understood backwards but must be lived forwards. Our constant angst
I
means that
agree with that.
unhappiness is more or less
It's like all these ideas I agree with, but it's just like I don't I don't fixate on like when you fixate on the idea of existentialism, I think it leads you down the wrong path. Like appreciate the meaninglessness of things and then give meaning to the things that make you the most happy. Like it's not worth it for you to focus on everything else if like the only thing that brings you joy is like spending time with your girlfriend with whoever. Like you know what I mean? It's like what good does it do me to worry about the things that I think are purposeless in this world? Like I can die on so many anthills, but it's like what's the point of it? Imagine if you didn't publish any of this.
written into the script of life. As he wrote, anyone who has given the matter any serious thought will know that I'm right when I say it's not possible for anyone to be absolutely and in every conceivable way completely content, not even for a single half hour of his life. No one has come into the world without crying.
I think that it's like these are interesting observations. It's just like again, it's like what do you do with it?
No one asks when you want to enter the world. No one asks when you want to leave. How empty and meaningless life is. We bury a person, throw 3 shovels of earth over him, drive out in a coach, drive back in a coach, and
Yeah,
console ourselves
that's
that we
what it
still have.
seems like. It's like being stuck in your own head. I mean, that's really what existentialism is, though. Like, what is existentialism aside from like looking at your life and being like, none of this fucking matters? Like, I think the only way to go from existentialism and live a good life is to find absurdism. I truly do. I think absurdism is like of the newer philosophies, I think it's one of the better ones. I think it's the one that has the most happiness and the most joy. Sounds like a teenager. Damn, Nadia really doesn't like this guy.
Life enough left to live. But really,
What do you
how
do
long
to
is
you,
3 score and
Hypnodia?
10? Why not just get it over with straight away? For Kierkegaard, there was, however, one answer that he put forward ever more stridently in his later works: Jesus Christ. Kierkegaard loathed the Christianity of the established Danish church, but he adored the simple truths of the Gospels
I agree.
that his father had taught him as a boy.
See, there's certain things I agree with. There's certain things I
For
don't.
him, Christianity was a religion of extreme surrender to a theology of almost peasant-like simplicity. One was to be ready to die for Christ, to give up all attachment to worldly things, and to love all humans like one's siblings. Kierkegaard wasn't interested in justifying his attachment to Christianity through rational means. Instead, he recommended a dramatic and now famous leap of faith.
I agree with all these things. Like, see what I mean? Like, there's some truth in this. There's some interesting stuff in it, but it's I don't know. It kind of seems like all over the
Wherein one
place.
wouldn't apply one's puny mind to attempting to prove the existence of God,
now,
one would merely switch off one's faulty
now he's your new favorite philosopher who went over.
rational faculties and jump into the idea of God as the total solution. As he put it, to have faith is to lose your mind and to win God. Like
Damn.
Marxist communism,
Hold on. I need to read that quote again. To have faith is to lose your mind and to win God. That's that's one of the best quotes I've ever heard.
like Marxist communism, Kierkegaard's solutions to the problems of being human are far less convincing and interesting
I don't
than
know
a
who Daniel
diagnosis
Dennett
of our
is.
ills. Few of us now make that leap. But
Who is
Kierkegaard
that?
deserves our attention for the beautifully bitter, caustic look he cast on the human condition. He's one of the few philosophers one can turn to when the world has badly let us down, and we're in need of a friend who can fully understand the dark places we're in once the sentimental illusions that normally keep us going fall away.
So I've not read any of him. I'd be interested to see what he. So the book I picked up, I picked it up because one, I had heard about Kierkegaard, and two, this book is called it's called The Concept of Anxiety, a simple psychologically oriented deliberation in view of the dogmatic problem of hereditary sin, which sounds like a lot of um, gobbledygook, but like I fixated on the dogmatic problem of hereditary sin. I think the idea of hereditary sin is like one of the most destructive ideas in the Western world. The idea that like we're born imperfect. Like I don't know about you, but I've never seen a baby that looks evil to me. Maybe you've seen it. Maybe I'm wrong, but like I've never seen a child that is anything but pure. I see children become impure by society telling them to do certain things. A, a teacher saying, "Sit still in class. You can't go to the bathroom." a parent telling a kid not to play in a certain way. Like all of these things begin to associate the ideas of shame and guilt, and this is what makes people imperfect. But until that happens, I think that the pure essence, hereditary sin, original sin. I mean, much of what we know about original sin, though, is not from the Bible. It's from John Milton. It's from Paradise Lost. Same thing with hell. Like the church accepted the idea of hell from Dante. That's where a lot of the theology around that comes from, which is like really weird. It's like I think the Bible puts it perfectly where it's not really a physical thing. It's a metaphysical thing. I think like when you say like, oh, there's seven layers of hell, there's this like I don't know, maybe it was allegory, but you kind of interpret it into literal sense. Like if you think the worst thing you can experience is burning fire for eternity, no, it's the absolute disconnect from God, which is just love, which is just positivity. Shield, I don't know what that is. Should we watch another one? Or should we watch something else? Yeah, it's just like I don't like the dogmatic side of these things. I think a lot of I would consider myself a Christian, but I wouldn't ever go to church because I don't like the dogma behind it. We'll watch after school. We'll watch one more video because what time is 11:20? I haven't eaten dinner yet, so uh, we'll find a short one. It's gonna take me forever. All right, we'll watch a George Carlin one to end it. Is that too loud?
Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. Politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice.
So true.
You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions.
I hate that like George Carlin like he's just a way of getting to your soul and you're like, damn it, he's right. Like you want to have hope, and then you hear Carlin and you're like, ah shit, I gotta give this up.
Billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed.
That ain't the truth. Start a business, you too can be the man. I think Carlin's this was in his book. Um it's called something like Why Can't When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? And he had an idea and it was super interesting, it was super inspiring. It was everyone that's like trying to change the world, whatever you're trying to do, it's probably not gonna work. Like you're never going to outdo all the evil in the world. You're never going to lobby enough people to make enough changes in the government to make it so it doesn't infringe on the rights of the people. What you can do is you can change yourself. You can affect your family. You can affect your community. You can inspire others, and through that, you'll see not great changes, but you'll see changes. And if enough people do that, then the world becomes a better place. And this is really the sentiment of Gandhi. When Gandhi said, "Be the change you want to see in this world," it's like it doesn't. It means nothing for you to tell me what to do. It means something for you to do it, and then me to watch you and me go, "Wow, that's a better way to do it." And that's truly what he was saying.
Well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept.
Let's save some for later. What do you mean?
All these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in.
Social Security is crazy because what is it? An insurance policy? Any other insurance company that you pay premiums into for the rest of your life, the moment you go to collect it, if they say, no, we're not giving it to you, you have a legal cause of action. When it comes to Social Security, you can pay into it your entire life and be denied. It is fucking insane. It's so crazy.
In it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hardworking people. White collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hardworking people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't.
That ain't the truth. If they cared about you, they wouldn't be a politician. Let's just say that. No person says, oh, give me all this power and I'll be good to you. No. No good person wants power.
Care about you at all, at all, at all. Yeah. It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
All right. That was a quick one. If we find another quick one, we keep going. All right, this is another good George Carlin one. These don't take long, so.
Boy, everyone in this country is always running around yammering about their fucking rights. I have a right, you have no right, we have a right, they don't have a right. Folks, I hate to spoil your fun, but there's no such thing as rights, okay? They're imaginary. We made them up, like the boogeyman.
It's so true. I hate that it's true, but it's
Three Little Pigs, Pinocchio, Mother Goose, shit like that. Rights are an idea. They're just imaginary. They're a cute idea. Cute. But that's all. Cute and fictional. But if you think you do have rights, let me ask you this. Where do they come from? People say, well, they come from God. They're God-given rights. Oh, fuck, here we go again. Here we go again. The God excuse. The last refuge of a man with no answers and no argument. It came from God. Anything we can't describe must have come from God. Personally, folks, I believe that if your rights came from God, he would have given you the right to some food every day, and he would have given you the right to a roof over your head.
See, I don't agree with Carlin when it comes to God, but everything else I do. I see his idea, like I see where he doesn't agree with the idea of God, but it's when you take it as a personal experience, when you take it as a personal journey to make yourself better, I don't see any wrong in it.
Your head, God would have been looking out for you. He wouldn't have been worried about making sure you have a gun so you get drunk on Sunday night and kill your girlfriend's parents. But let's say it's true. Let's say God gave us these rights. Why would he give us a certain number of rights? The Bill of Rights of this country has 10 stipulations, okay? 10 rights. And apparently...
Originally, Alexander Hamilton and James Madison did not want a Bill of Rights. They basically said that in all of the lines of the Constitution, these rights are already granted. But there was a big clamor against not having a Bill of Rights because they believed that if they weren't explicitly stated, the government would not grant them. And I think there's some arguments both ways for this. Maybe it would actually protect you more because if there was more ambiguity and we get the right people that are representing us, then they wouldn't erode our rights in such a way. But it's not the case. So yeah, it is what it is. I think the idea of the Constitution is beautiful. I think the application is not beautiful. I think there's a lot of things that are incorrect about it. I mean, the 10th Amendment doesn't exist anymore. The Ninth Amendment isn't even fucking used. Like, these are two of the most powerful amendments, and they're not recognized really. And it's really unfortunate. Like, the system was amazing. The system was great, and it allowed itself to be improved. But you know, it's really been just co-opted by big interest groups that want to put their interests ahead of the masses of the people. And yeah.
Apparently God was doing sloppy work that week because we've had to amend the Bill of Rights an additional 17 times. So God forgot a couple of things like slavery. Just fucking slipped his mind.
Thomas Jefferson, well, he didn't put he didn't put abolition of slavery in the Constitution. What he did do was he set the groundworks of a few really important bills to eventually get this done. So he stopped slavery on what would be the west of the Mississippi, I think it was, and he basically stopped the Atlantic slave trade. And if he didn't do any of these things, there would be too many people, like millions more people would have been brought over, and like way more states would have had way more power when it came to the Civil War. So very, I think that's one of the coolest parts of history. I mean, like, were these men perfect? No, they weren't perfect, but like, it's inspiring to see the efforts that they went to, and especially at a time when like they were in such the minority of believing these things, you know.
But let's say God gave us the original 10. He gave the British 13. The British Bill of Rights has 13 stipulations. The Germans have 29. The Belgians have 25. The Swedish have only 6. And some people in the world have no rights at all. What kind of a fucking goddamn God-given deal is that? No rights at all?
Yeah.
Why would God give different people in different...
Even if you look to the original Constitution, it was only landowning men that could vote. So it's like, I mean, I bet you they were more represented than we are today. Because I think people were more sensible. People actually gave a fuck about each other more. Like, I mean, dude, like there's homeless people in the subway like beating the shit out of people and no one does anything. Like what world do we live in? Like, I mean, we have homeless people. Like, that should be enough reason to see that nobody cares about each other.
different countries, different numbers of different rights. Boredom? Amusement? Bad arithmetic? Do we find out at long last after all this time that God is weak in math skills? Doesn't sound like divine planning to me. Sounds more like human planning. Sounds more like one group trying to control another group. In other words, business as usual in America. Now, if you think you do have rights, one last assignment for you. Next time you're at the computer, get on the internet, go to Wikipedia. When you get to Wikipedia,
This is like this is haunting. I'm sorry if I like ruin your idea of freedom.
the search field for Wikipedia, I want you to type in Japanese Americans 1942, and you'll find out all about
You
depression.
don't believe in universal suffrage. I mean, I think the cat's out of the bag at this point. I mean, like you'd have to like do amendments. Maybe an idea would be like some sort of civil engagement. But again, I don't put too much energy into voting. I don't put too much thought into voting. I think like you should have to have some investment in the country to um, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think you vote your way out of the state that we're in. There's different proposed ideas. I don't think really any of them are fair. I don't think any of them like really get to the root of the issue. I think the root of the issue is that this is Thoreau's idea. This is one of the most interesting ideas. As an independent voter, this is in the 1840s or 1850s, whenever he wrote Civil Disobedience. I can't remember. Maybe it's even earlier. But Henry David Thoreau wrote, as an independent voter, I can't vote for anyone that isn't already pre-approved by the Democratic or Republican Party. He couldn't vote for someone in the election because he wasn't registered, so he couldn't vote in the primary. So whoever he voted for was already pre-approved by the party and doesn't represent his interests as an independent voter. And this is the issue with our country. Like, it's you're picking the worst of two fucking idiots. That's genuinely every single election. You're like, who do I think is going to kill the least amount of people? Who do I think is going to get the best? Like, it's like, what are these fucking dilemmas we have to weigh out? Like, oh, under this guy, the economy's better. Under this guy, we're gonna go to war. Like, what the like? Why are these the decisions we have to make? Why are these the only two fucking people that want to be president in this country?
His fucking rights, okay? All right. You know about it. You know about it. Yeah. In 1942, there were 110,000 Japanese American citizens and good standing, law abiding people who were thrown into internment camps simply because their parents were born in the wrong country. That's all they did wrong. They had no right to a lawyer, no right to a fair trial, no right to a jury of their peers, no right to due process of any kind. The only right they had, right this way, into the internment camps.
This is like so awful. Like, ugh. this is like glossed over in U.S. history as well. This is like one of the darkest times in American history.
Just when these American citizens needed their rights the most, their government took them away. And rights aren't rights if someone can take them away. They're
Yeah, I don't
privileges.
think there's
That's
any
all we've ever
change
had in
though.
this
That's
country
the
is a
problem.
bill of temporary privileges. And if you read the news even badly, you know that every year the list gets shorter and shorter and shorter. Sooner or later, the people in this country are going to realize the government does not give a fuck about them. Government doesn't care about you or your children or your rights or your welfare or your safety. It simply doesn't give a fuck about you. It's interested in its own power. That's the only thing, keeping it and expanding it wherever possible. Personally, when it comes to rights, I think one of two things is true. I think either we have unlimited rights or we have no rights at all.
Yeah, that's agreed.
It's
Carlin's like, sometimes you watch a Carlin video, you're like, damn, he's right. Cat got out of the bag when we ended. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, man. It's like, I just think like the political system has just become so, I mean, it's so set in its ways. Like that's the real issue with it. Like it's so corporatized. It's so, oh, we need to benefit the people that got us elected instead of benefiting. We should treat the party like cults. They are cults, man. I mean, they just replaced God with the Democrats or Republicans. I mean, have you seen the people that like think Trump is the Messiah, or have you seen the other side of things where people like will defend the beliefs of the Democratic Party like to their dying breath? Like it's very cult like behavior when you look at it. Like, I mean, when people turn away from God, they just replace that part in their mind with something else. And usually it's some sort of movement, usually it's some sort of thing that people can collectively get behind and aspire to create some new worldview, create some new thing. And I mean, it sucks, it sucks, it sucks. I just wish people were more like people. I wish people were just like why is it that politics are like such a popular thing? It's so stupid. It's like politics are something that we should only care about every 4 years. I don't give a fuck. Like why do people watch the news every? I don't get that. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Like why watch the news all day when all it does is stress you out? But I think I'm gonna end this now because I'm getting tired. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for having fun stream. This is a longer stream than I normally do. I'm gonna stream again tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly what time. It might be early, it might be later. Um, I hope it's not this fucking late. Yeah, every time I stream this late, like I don't go to bed so late because like I have so much energy. Like I'm tired, but I have like adrenaline because like this is like performative in my mind somewhat. But yeah, it's hard for me to fall asleep. So I don't know what I'm gonna stream. If you want to know exactly what I'm gonna stream, join my Discord. You'll get a notification. If you don't have notifications on this already, I don't know. But Discord's the best place to get notifications. So yeah, love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with me, having fun. This is an awesome stream. I had a good time. Yeah, peace out. Everyone have a good night. Yeah, see you tomorrow. If I could end the stream. Yeah. Oh.